It is time for money, power, politics. And tonight, the president is ramping up tariff pressure on India, a key U.S. trading partner. He threatened to raise tariffs over their purchases of Russian oil, accusing them of profiteering and funding Russia's war in Ukraine. India criticized the escalation, calling it unjustified and unreasonable, because last year, the United States, that is us, publicly supported India's plan. It kept oil flowing in global supply, but at a cheap enough price to shrink Russia's revenue. And it is not just India. China is also pushing back against Trump's demands. He not only wants the country to stop buying Russian oil, but Iranian oil as well. We have a lot to get through in the next few minutes. So let's bring in Gene Sperling, former director of the National Economic Council and assistant to the president for economic policy under Presidents Clinton and Obama, and Peter Goodman, global economics correspondent for the New York Times and author of How the World Ran Out of Everything. All right, Gene, educate us. India is a major U.S. trading partner. How significant is this?
Oh, it's quite significant. And Stephanie, it's going to shock you, but I'm going to give President Trump a little bit of grace on one thing.
Please.
I like him to be tough on Russia and talking about defending Ukraine. And so I'm encouraged to hear that. The question that you're raising is this the smart way to do it? Because what the Biden administration and experts dealt with before is, how do you hurt Russia by lowering their revenues without shrinking the global oil supply so that gas prices go up in the United States and across the world? Certainly something the president doesn't like. And so one of the ideas was to make people like India buy it at a cheap price with a price cap. That way you had a large global oil supply, prices didn't go up, but you were still hurting Russia. So my question to the administration is, I support you getting tough on Russia. I support you looking out to defend Ukraine. But this was a plan, and it was a logical plan, and it was working. Do you have a better plan in its place that's not going to hurt Russia, but then end up raising gas prices so much that it becomes an unpopular sanction or tariff across the world?
Well, let's talk about a different plan that the president is putting in place. He is now demanding investment pledges from all different countries and threatening these trading partners with high tariffs if they don't put up the money. And of course, reminder, it's not other countries who put up the tariff money. It is U.S. importers. Peter, this sounds like a shakedown. The White House would say this is an art of the deal negotiation.
I mean, it sounds like central planning, right? I mean, it's another element of the ways in which we are accustomed to thinking about the American economy as special, right? I mean, we ask and we receive the money from investors around the world into the U.S. dollar, which keeps our own interest rates lower than they otherwise would be, which has promoted growth and made things cheaper for Americans, in part because they believe that we believe in open markets, in accurate statistics, in independent central banking. And so when we go into this trade war that we have created for ourselves, and we immediately start talking about how, this is our president telling other giant economies what they're going to have to pay, what sorts of investment they're going to pledge as a condition of getting access to our marketplace, it's just another indication that our system is now run by someone who does not subscribe to the basic tenets of what has been the American economy for as long as any of us have been alive.
Which is so extraordinary because on one hand, how do you call yourself pro-growth, pro-business when you are putting draconian restrictions on things? Gene, what happens if our government becomes reliant on this tariff revenue? Couldn't we get stuck in this cycle? And isn't it a reminder that this is simply a tax, right? We've got industries like retail, the apparel industry, that are already low margin businesses that cannot afford this kind of tax.
Yeah, well, let me circle back for one point on our previous discussion to tie together, because it goes what Peter's saying too, which is, Stephanie, you heard the president's economic advisors trying to say, oh, once we get to August 7th, we're done. What you see in his actions towards India, in his actions towards Brazil, is that this is never going to end. There's going to be constant uncertainty, constant threats. And there'll be caves, there'll be a coffee cave, there'll be other caves, but there'll be constant threats because the president has no boundaries at all. And this is going to be very harmful for the economy in terms of uncertainty. In terms of tariffs, as you say, you can't repeal, the basic laws of economics. You can, they might be a little different. It may be that only 50% of tariffs will get passed on as opposed to 70%. But what is clear is that we have one of the largest taxes on middle class families. And I'll tell you, the reason I said coffee cave is, Stephanie, I don't know what they're going to do when people start seeing their Nike and Adidas shoes costing $20, $30, $40 more, or their coffee costing more, or their bananas costing more. And people are going to say, really? Is Nike shoes or coffee a national security issue? And are we going to be growing coffee or bananas or pineapples here anytime soon? So yes, you're going to start to see it, and you've had a delay because people are gaming it, they're front loading, but sooner or later on a whole lot of products going in, if it doesn't hit hard in the back to school, it will hit hard in the Christmas and early next year. Prices will be up, and the very thing that helped this president get elected, which was unhappiness over high prices, he will have engineered with his own policies.